Hello everybody, this is Fernando for the latest Cryptids and Monsters video. Alright, let's go ahead and let's continue the wonderful book, Mysterious Monsters, Fact or Fiction. Once again going into chapter 2, this time part 5, which delves away from the world of chupacabras and instead goes into pterodactyls. In fact, this chapter is dedicated to a famous photo, which you're looking at here. This is a photo of a pterodactyl that I featured within some of my past videos when some of those videos highlighted a pterodactyl-like creature. This is an infamous photo because even since its inception, there's been a lot of controversy associated with it. This particular chapter, in fact, states that it is a hoax. So I'm going to go ahead and feature what this chapter says. Let me know what you guys and gals think about the reasons for this author thinking that it is a hoax, and then I'll get my own thoughts and opinions on it as well. In fact, the title of the chapter is "The Modern Pterodactyl Photo is a Hoax." So let's go ahead and let's talk about that here, and then I'll go ahead and then again give my own comments afterward. So here's what this chapter states. When people argue that pterodactyls or their relatives still exist in the modern world, they sometimes point to the evidence provided by a famous photograph purporting to show a pterodactyl-like bird killed by Arizona cowboys around 1890. The photo supposedly appeared in a magazine in the 1950s, and a few parapsychologists claim that they remember seeing it. However, several researchers in recent times have scoured all kinds of archives and have been unable to find the photo. Although that photo, if it ever existed, appears to be permanently lost, a similar photo can be found on the internet today. It purports to show Civil War soldiers with a dead pterodactyl. Many internet users believe it is proof that pterodactyls did and still might coexist with humans. Since most scientists believe pterodactyls are long extinct, proof of their current existence would be big news indeed. However, Massimo Polidoro asserts in the following article that the Civil War photograph is definitely a fake. He provides evidence that it originated on a website for a fictional television program about the paranormal, and he is dismayed that the photo was co-opted from the website and is currently circulating the internet as supposed evidence of a historical anomaly. Polidoro and others argue that the rumored Western cowboy photo, if it actually existed, was fake as well. Polidoro believes there is no evidence that pterodactyls had existed anywhere since the end of the dinosaur age. Polidoro is a stage magician, an investigator of the paranormal, the author of several Italian books on the paranormal, and the head of the Comitato Italiano per il controllo dell'affermazione sul paranormal, an Italian skeptics organization. So here's what he says. Most people know about the plot of Jurassic Park, the Steven Spielberg movie inspired by the Michael Crichton bestseller. Dinosaurs are brought back to life thanks to the wonders of genetic engineering. The dinosaurs were so real that the movie instantly became a huge success. It was obvious that a new Crichton book and subsequent Spielberg movie, The Lost World, would be produced. Again, a fantastic success and more sequels to come, though with Crichton and Spielberg still more or less involved, but not in the limelight anymore. The next segment is called Lost World. Not many, however, know that the original idea for dinosaurs still living in the modern era and interacting with humans dates back to 1912 when Arthur Conan Doyle, then already a worldwide celebrity thanks to the adventures of his cool private detective Sherlock Holmes, published one of his most famous novels, The Lost World. It was not a coincidence nor a theft, but a tribute to the old master then that Crichton would give the same title to his own book. In Doyle's book, a group of explorers, led by the energetic Professor Challenger, set sail for a lost land in South America, a place where Crichton would stage his stories as well, and discovers that dinosaurs, long believed to be extinct, still live. The group survives a million adventures and then is able to make it back to London. At a public lecture at Queen's Hall, they try to convince a skeptical audience of the wonders they witness, but words, drawings, and fuzzy pictures are not enough. The only thing that could have an effect will be the presence of a real creature. and the creature is there. A large square packing case was slowly carried forward and placed in front of the professor's chair. All sound had hushed in the audience, and everyone was absorbed in the spectacle before them. Professor Challenger drew off the top of the case, which formed a sliding lid. Peering down into the box, he snapped his fingers several times and was heard from the press seat to say, "Come then, pretty, pretty," in a coaxing voice. An instant later, with a scratching, rattling sound, a most horrible and loathsome creature appeared from below and perched itself upon the side of the case. The face of the creature was like the wildest gargoyle that the imagination of the mad medieval builder could have conceived. It was malicious, horrible, with two small red eyes as bright as points of burning coal. Its long, savage mouth, which was held half open, was full of a double row of shark-like teeth. Its shoulders were humped, and round them were draped what appeared to be a faded gray shawl. It was the devil of our childhood in person. Next segment is called Lost Creatures. That's the description of a pterodactyl, the ancient prehistoric green reptile that lived between 144 and 65 million years ago. When Doyle wrote his book, dinosaurs and pterodactyls were, of course, long gone. Imagine how fantastic it would be if somewhere, somehow, some dinosaur was still alive. That's exactly what many believe the Loch Ness or the Ogopogo monsters are, or what other mysterious creatures could be. Animals that lived when dinosaurs roamed are still with us and will probably still be here for a long time, such as sharks, crocodiles, and turtles, for example. Yes, you'd say, but there's a huge difference between a lone, mysterious, gigantic creature that is said to live in a lake, but of which nobody seems to be able to take a decent picture of, and animals that any school kid can meet at an aquarium. Okay, one could answer, but what do you say about the fact that prehistoric creatures that were thought to be extinct are still found to be alive? That's what happened with the coelacanth, for example, of which a living specimen was discovered only in 1952. And surprisingly, new animals can still be found in our small world. Animals such as the okapi, the Komodo dragon, the mountain gorilla, the Manchurian brown bear, or the giant panda were all discovered only in the 20th century. Even to this day, huge and unexpected new creatures can be found. What would you call, in fact, the chance filming by an underwater expedition in May 2001 of a big, strange-looking, and never-before-seen squid, which was more than 17 feet long? Now, you'd probably admit that the possibility of finding an unexpected dinosaur, or at least some creature that lived millions of years ago, appears to be more plausible. But would you really stretch your willingness to the point of imagining a real, living pterodactyl flying through North America? Well, some people did. Next segment is called Lost Picture. It all began in April 26, 1890, when a Tombstone Epitaph, an Arizona local newspaper, published a sensational story. Found in the desert, a strange winged monster discovered and killed on the Huachua Desert. The monster was described as a huge alligator with an extremely elongated tail and an immense pair of wings. The monster had been sighted and shot by two ranchers who were returning home from the Huachuca desert. When the creature was certainly dead, they proceeded to make an examination and found that it measured about 92 feet in length, and the greatest diameter was about 50 inches. The wingspan from tip to tip was about 160 feet. The wings, as in the pterodactyl, were composed of thick and nearly transparent membrane and were devoid of feathers or hair, as was the entire body. Unfortunately, according to the story, the two cowboys left the monster where it was and only cut off a small portion of the tip of one wing as a souvenir. A search, however, was to be sent next day for examination by the eminent scientist of the day. No trace of the bird or of the commission's report, however, has ever appeared. Harry McClure, a youngster early last century in Lordsburg, New Mexico, when the two ranchers came to town, remembered that episode. He had friends who knew them well and thought the story was not a hoax. Was the creature photographed? No, it was not, according to McClure, as in any case, the epitaph did not carry any pictures with its articles. Others, however, think differently. Writer Jack Pearl told about the epitaph story in a 1963 issue of Saga magazine and explained that the strange bird was brought to town and photographed. It was put in a wagon and, after reaching Tombstone, was nailed to the wall of a barn. 6 men stood before it with their arms outstretched, touching fingertip to fingertip. Pearl, however, seems to have gotten many details wrong, as Mark Hall clearly explained in Fortean Times magazine, and the story of the picture has never received any corroboration. There were many, though, who remembered seeing such a photograph or a photocopy of it in the hands of Ivan T. Sanderson, the famous naturalist and 14-aunter who died in 1973. Apparently, Sanderson gave the photocopy to 2 young men who traveled into the heart of northern Pennsylvania to inquire about reports of giant birds in that region and lost it in the course of their search. All kinds of publications were searched, from National Geographic to Fate magazine, including all the back issues of Epitaph, but no traces of such a photo were ever found. The numerous vague recollections of seeing this missing photograph, concludes Hall in his article, might well be erroneous. Like many others, I've spent many hours looking for it, and like them, I will continue to look. Everyone who reads about this phantom photograph has the same desire to see it for themselves. And then, after many years, a mysterious image or picture emerges from the internet. Next segment is called Lost Chance. In the spring of 2000, a new website, www.freakylinks.com, appeared and published a sensational photograph showing a group of what appeared to be Union soldiers before the carcass of a massive pterodactyl. The editor of that site, Derek Rames, claimed that the photo was found in July of 1988, squeezed between the pages of a 70s cheesy paranormal book bought at a thrift store. The photograph, which was sepia tinted, scratched, bent, and torn on the edges, appeared to be very impressive, and apparently its authenticity was verified by various experts. One historian had identified the men's uniforms as typical of Union volunteers between 1861 and 1862. Another expert, an Dance Darbo, professor of paleontology from the University of Florida, asserted that no one at the time could have known about pterodactyls, as the first fossils were not discovered in North America until 1871. This photograph, commented Barnes in his web pages, is either going to be the biggest paranormal news scoop of the century, or it's going to make me the biggest fool on the planet, or perhaps both. Was then the Holy Grail of cryptozoology located at last? All right, it did not have the cowboys standing before the bird, but Civil War soldiers instead. Was it perhaps a different pterodactyl? Fortean Times ran a very skeptical article about this photo in its May 2000 issue, concluding with these words: "We believe he's a hoaxer, but a clever and well-informed one, as the site is full of excellent Fortean jokes, e.g. the rather disgusting photo of a toilet bowl thoughtfully snapped after some unfortunate had just vomited some frogs." Further doubts soon emerged after the magazine's article was published. Various readers wrote to pinpoint several details in the photo that led to the conclusion that the photo was a fake. First of all, the men pictured were obviously reenactors. Given the undue proportion of overage and overweight members in their ranks, the average Civil War soldier was a scrawny youth of 19. Such groups of reenactors are quite common in the States, and among them, there is a much higher proportion of older and fatter members than in the original armies. The clean and neat uniforms also mark them out as reenactors rather than the real thing. Their poses also are too naturalistic for an 1860s photograph. If you ever looked at photos from that period, you can see there are a dozen subtle differences in the way they stood, the way they held their heads, the looks on their faces, what they did with their arms and hands while they were being photographed. Finally, all doubts were confirmed when it was discovered that the site was connected to the creators of the Blair Witch Project. Freaky Links was in fact the title of an upcoming TV series, and the site was designed to promote interest in it. The show's star was actor Ethan Embry, and his character was named Derek Barnes, editor of an internet website that investigates the paranormal. As expected, the experts quoted in the site were imaginary, just as the pterodactyl that was only a stage prop, courtesy of Fox. The cryptozoologists' hope of having finally found real proof of a living pterodactyl in the modern era then returned to the world of dreams. But if somewhere an unknown magazine or book truly contains an old picture of a mysterious bird, it will hopefully be found someday. Then that's it. That's everything associated with this part. So it's chapter 2, part 5 from the book Mysterious Monsters, Fact or Fiction. So let's go ahead and let's talk about that here. Interesting stuff, right? You've seen that picture before, the one that I've highlighted throughout this reading, where it shows those cowboys essentially looking on to a very, very large bird of some sort. It's fascinating because it makes you wonder if it's real. Well, in this case, the one that the author was talking about was the one involving the pterodactyl with some Civil War soldiers. But the other one involving the cowboys, that's the one that seems to be the most interesting to me. So the chapter was stating that that picture was lost, the one involving the cowboys, and maybe it's still out there somewhere. And then there was the one involving the soldiers themselves that was found afterward. I remember seeing that picture with the cowboys for a long time, like it was probably when I first started accessing the internet. It was one of those things where it was just featured on web forums here and there. Anyone else remember seeing that picture as well? Because definitely circulated through a lot of things. And the author points out an interesting thing too, which he's right about. The idea that there could be dinosaurs still out there is not impossible because there's new animals being found all the time. It was interesting to read that the mountain gorilla, the Komodo dragon, the giant panda, they all were discovered in the 20th century. Nowhere seems like before. So here you have another example of the coelacanth, which I've talked about in a past video, also being a long-lost creature that is suddenly here in the modern age. So something involving a pterodactyl, why would that not essentially be real as well? Now, he's highlighting that the picture itself is fake, but the idea of a pterodactyl somewhere being out there, they conclude that it could still be the case. Let me know what you guys and gals think. Is that true? Is that something that really could occur? My own video again in the coelacanth mentioned that too. So I'd be fascinated to see if we ever truly capture something along those lines. It was interesting. He also highlighted that thing where so many people claim to see something, but again, no pictures. Nobody has a picture of it to this day, even though they claim to see it, in their with their own eyes somewhere out there in this world. Nobody ever has their phone handy to be able to take a picture. But let me know what you guys and gals think. All right, everybody. Thanks again as always. Take care.